Hello everyone, welcome to my channel SW Metro official channel. In the sprawling saga of sister wives, where secrets, betrayals, financial entanglements, and long-simmering resentments often play out both on camera and behind the scenes, the day that Meri Brown finally called the police and set in motion the arrest of Kody Brown and Robyn Brown over embezzlement of her property felt like the inevitable climax of years of injustice, heartbreak, and power struggles that had been brushed aside for too long, because for more than a decade viewers had seen Meri, the first wife of Kody, often marginalized and left out, enduring neglect, insults, and dismissals while trying to hold on to her dignity, her independence, and her rightful share of the Brown family's property. But what fans didn't realize until recently was just how deep the financial manipulation allegedly went, and how Kody and Robyn, who had become a unit more tightly bound than any of Kody's other marriages, had been quietly maneuvering assets, signing documents, and transferring money in ways that would ultimately strip Meri of her financial security. And when Meri finally uncovered the evidence of embezzlement, the betrayal wasn't just emotional but legal, a violation that crossed the line from personal slight into criminal offense, prompting her to make the boldest move of her life by contacting law enforcement and setting the wheels of justice in motion. Because for too long she had tolerated being pushed to the background while Kody flaunted his favoritism for Robyn, pouring time, affection, and financial resources into his youngest wife and her children while leaving Meri and the other original wives scrambling. But property was different. It wasn't about romance or favoritism, it was about rights, contracts, signatures, and money. And when Meri realized that parcels of land and streams of income tied directly to her investments had been siphoned into accounts controlled solely by Kody and Robyn under the guise of family assets, her fury overcame years of hesitation, because Meri, despite her quiet nature and loyal tendencies, had always been the first legal wife, the one whose name and credit had once anchored the family's loans and ventures, and she remembered clearly how her contributions had laid the groundwork for the purchase of Coyote Pass, how her financial standing had been used to secure homes in Las Vegas and Flagstaff, and how she had been told repeatedly by Kody that everything was for the family. But when the dust settled, Meri was left with little to nothing while Kody and Robyn held the titles, and it was this discrepancy that made her dig deeper, combing through bank statements, loan documents, and emails until she found what she described as irrefutable proof of embezzlement. And calling the police wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming her power, her voice, and her future, because once she realized that the law was on her side, she could no longer be intimidated by Kody's temper or Robyn's tears. And the day the officers arrived, knocking on the door of the Flagstaff home where Kody and Robyn lived in luxury while other wives struggled to make ends meet, it was a scene no one in the sister wives fandom ever thought they would see, with Kody shouting about persecution, Robyn crying that it was all a misunderstanding, and Meri standing firm, her arms crossed, her head held high, as she told officers exactly how her property had been stolen, her accounts drained, and her trust obliterated. And the arrest wasn't merely a sensational headline, it was a symbolic turning point, a moment when Meri shed the skin of victimhood and stepped into the role of survivor and warrior, forcing Kody and Robyn to face the consequences of their actions not just in the court of public opinion but in a real courtroom where words like fraud, embezzlement, and theft carried legal weight. And though some fans were shocked, others felt vindicated, remembering all the times Meri had been gaslit on screen, told she was overreacting, marginalized while Robyn became the favorite, and even Kody himself had admitted that he had no romantic love left for Meri, treating her presence as an obligation rather than a partnership. Yet ironically it was Meri, not Robyn, whose financial backbone had once made the entire Brown empire possible, and this embezzlement case brought all of that history to the forefront, showing the hypocrisy of Kody's so-called leadership and the consequences of Robyn's willingness to go along with the scheme, because while they may have thought Meri was too quiet, too broken, or too dependent to fight back, they underestimated the resilience that comes from being pushed to the brink for years. And the moment Meri saw her property stolen was the moment she decided she had nothing left to lose. And as the legal case unfolded, with prosecutors digging into records of property transfers, suspicious withdrawals, and accounts that bore only the names of Kody and Robyn, the narrative that had once been about polygamy and family drama shifted into a cautionary tale about financial abuse within relationships. and Meri's courage in going to the police became an inspiration for viewers who had silently endured exploitation in their own lives. Because the truth was that Meri's call wasn't just a personal reckoning, it was a public declaration that even after years of being silenced, a person could take back their power, demand accountability, and rewrite the ending of their story. And for Kody and Robyn, who once thought they could control every outcome by spinning narratives of family unity or claiming victimhood when convenient, the reality of facing handcuffs, court dates, and possible prison sentences was a stark reminder that manipulation may work on reality TV, but it doesn't hold up against the law. And fans, who had long debated whether Meri should leave, finally saw her do more than leave. She fought back, not with words or tears but with evidence, with police reports, and with the unshakable conviction that justice was on her side. And though the story is still unfolding, one thing is certain: the arrest of Kody and Robyn for embezzling Meri's property is more than just a scandal, it's a reckoning that will change the trajectory of the Brown family forever, forcing everyone, Christine, Janelle, the children, and even the viewers, to re-evaluate everything they thought they knew about loyalty, family, and justice, because Meri has proven once and for all that the quietest wife may, in the end, be the one with the loudest and most lasting impact. For months, Meri Brown had watched from the sidelines as Kody and Robyn Brown maneuvered through the family finances, shifting assets, making decisions that directly impacted her without consultation, and leaving her increasingly concerned about the security of her property and her place within the complex family structure. The tension had begun with minor disputes, missed communications, disagreements over land use, and subtle manipulations regarding property shares, but over time, these disagreements escalated into a full-blown crisis when Meri discovered evidence that pointed to serious financial misconduct. It was not just a matter of oversights or poor planning. Documents, bank statements, and emails suggested that Kody and Robyn had deliberately diverted funds, potentially embezzling property that legally belonged to Meri. The realization hit Meri like a freight train, igniting a fire of both anger and clarity within her. For years, she had been patient, often choosing to smooth over conflicts and preserve the fragile peace in the Brown household, but this situation crossed a line she could no longer ignore. As the pieces fell into place, she recognized that legal intervention was not just a possibility but an absolute necessity. There was no longer room for negotiation or mediated conversation. The betrayal was too deep, the evidence too compelling, and the consequences of inaction too severe. In a bold and unprecedented move, Meri made the decision to call law enforcement, knowing that this action would forever alter the dynamics of her family and her life. The day the police arrived was surreal, almost cinematic in its unfolding, with the quiet, familiar spaces of her home transformed into a stage for confrontation. Kody and Robyn, who had operated with confidence and an air of untouchable authority, were suddenly confronted with the reality that their actions had legal consequences. The officers, professional and methodical, went about their duties with calm precision, executing arrests that felt both shocking and inevitable. Meri, standing quietly but resolutely, watched as the individuals who had caused her so much frustration and pain were led away, her emotions a complex mixture of vindication, relief, and sorrow. Relief came from the knowledge that justice was being pursued, that her property, the culmination of years of hard work, careful planning, and personal investment, was no longer in jeopardy of being misused or taken from her. Yet sorrow lingered because the action was not just a legal intervention, it was the public and undeniable unraveling of the family she had once trusted, a family bound not just by law but by faith, tradition, and years of shared history. It was a reminder that even the strongest bonds could be tested and, in some cases, broken irreparably by deception and mismanagement. As the news of the arrest spread through social circles, social media, and gossip channels, the Brown family faced scrutiny from fans, critics, and the broader public who had followed their lives with curiosity, fascination, and sometimes judgment. Headlines and commentary erupted, framing the arrests in stark, sensational terms, often emphasizing the drama over the nuanced truth, that this was not an act of malice or vengeance but one of necessity, born from a need to protect what was rightfully hers. Analysts and fans debated whether the family would ever recover, whether Kody and Robyn's positions in the family and on the show could withstand such public exposure, and whether Meri's decision would forever change perceptions of her personality, her motives, and her capacity for assertiveness. For Meri herself, however, the act was deeply personal and profoundly liberating. She had moved from a state of silent endurance to one of assertive agency, reclaiming control over her life and her assets, demonstrating to herself and the world that she was not powerless, that she would not allow her trust to be betrayed without consequence. The legal proceedings that followed were meticulous, with investigators carefully documenting the financial discrepancies, tracing transactions, and presenting evidence that would stand up in court.